It's the one headline Meghan and Harry reportedly feared the most, and it's finally here. Former staffers, once silenced by loyalty or legal pressure, are now speaking out. And what they're allegedly revealing isn't just shocking. It's career-ending. The Sussexes, who built an entire public identity around transparency, healing, and authenticity, are now facing a tidal wave of insider claims that paint a very different picture.
Did you see my baby mama dance?
I mean, stop it. First of all, can I just tell you, the timing of that, we maybe watched it like 20 times yesterday, and I was like, is that her?
Oh my God.
Is that Prince Harry there with the fingers and the, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, by the way, that wasn't yesterday.
No,
that was 4 years ago. So it's also a really great reminder that with all the noise or whatever people do, there's still a whole life, a real, authentic, fun life that's happening behind the scenes. I'm just grateful that now, being back on social as well, I have a place where I can share it on my own terms.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great. It's so authentic, isn't it?
Everybody says she's a bully. She's very nasty. Not only is she incredibly controlling, but she's a bitch about.
One filled with pressure, spin, and silence. Insiders claim that many of the public stories we've been told about Meghan's experience entering royal life, her relationship with senior royals, and how her time in the palace unfolded were not just framed for PR, but intentionally scripted. Behind the scenes, staffers now say they were told what to say, how to say it, and when to say nothing at all. From the amount of royal protocol training she received to the level of emotional support during her pregnancies to how organic her Netflix moments really were.
End of every episode, it says, like, the starring, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex.
Yes.
That's how mornings are as I get the kids off to school. You're making fruit parfait crudité boards? Like,
oh my God.
whom?
She is.
Oh my gosh, I worked so hard.
She talks like she's a one-woman band. That is not hard work. Hard work is get up in the morning, get to 7 o'clock, get into a factory or a shop and working for 10 hours on your feet, coming home knackered. That's not what happens to her.
And still being a mom.
That is
still
not
being
what
a
happens to
mom.
her.
These staffers allege they were not just encouraged, but expected to maintain a version of events that suited the Sussex narrative. And if that meant bending the truth, so be it. But while Archewell's public-facing team continues to push motivational slogans and filtered family portraits, those who actually lived inside the operation describe a workplace where image ruled everything, and silence was rewarded. Because the truth, they say, didn't just risk embarrassment.
Harry's Sussex? I have no idea. And no, Meghan, no one knew that. Like, why are you correct?
I'm going to show you how to make a happy, warm, loving home after I have successfully severed my husband's ties from his entire family.
This woman is a born manipulator. The Netflix thing, she doesn't do the work. She don't make the jams. It's all made for her.
What matters is what we have on the inside.
It risked collapse. And once that curtain lifted, even the stories we thought we knew started to fall apart. When the British press first labeled Meghan the Duchess of Difficult, the response was immediate. Supporters called it sexist, unfair, and driven by bias. And on the surface, that criticism made sense. But now, former insiders are hinting that there may have been more truth behind that label than anyone wanted to admit. Multiple aides who worked directly with the couple reportedly described the working environment as chaotic, unclear, and intensely stressful. Expectations allegedly shifted without warning. Goals changed day to day. What was praised one week was reportedly criticized the next. One former aide described a chilling culture of second-guessing and fear.
As ever, her new company, the very first thing she said was, look, when I had the TIG, which was her previous lifestyle website, I loved cooking and I loved gardening and being a hostess, and that she basically said I had to keep my light under a bushel at this time because of the royal family. Then we get her show, her Netflix show, her creativity being stunted. She says that when, she first, and, as a result of the royal family, she says that when she became a mum, she would have thought that she'd be able to have a baby on her hip and give speeches, but then, the whole drama and the pain and everything that was caused by being part of the royal family.
Once they did, I remember being told there was a huge headline like, "We found him," or "We've got him." You're talking about someone's father. And from that point, the tabloids, they moved into the apartment next door and across from him.
You were expected to know exactly what she wanted, even if she hadn't said it yet. If you guessed wrong, you were sidelined. Another insider claimed the turnover rate for staff assigned to the couple was so high, internal HR began tracking it separately from other royal departments.
Did it feel like betrayal when you found out your father was working with the tabloids?
I'm just trying to decide if I'm comfortable even talking about that.
Meghan Markle, she may have stepped down from royal duties more than 5 years ago, but she keeps taking aim at the monarchy. The Duchess of Sussex has made reportedly at least half a dozen swipes at the royal family this year, and it's only June.
Hello all. Sorry we're late. Our flight was delayed.
It was mint though. Tell them we were in mint.
They gave you a mint. How lovely. I have some gum in my purse if you'd like.
Oh, we were in mint. It's like their business class. It's really nice. And
Meghan, I'm begging you to stop now.
This also follows all the stories about her bullying staff over here in the UK, which is unresolved. NDAs stopped all that stuff coming out, but she bullied people in a very unpleasant way over here.
Resignations, quick reassignments, and quiet departures became common. And each time a team member left, the public narrative stayed the same. Nothing to see here. Everyone's thriving. But behind the smiles and staged engagement photos, insiders claim the staff were burning out and being told to act like everything was perfect. Because if they didn't, they risked losing more than just a job. They risked breaking the illusion. And that illusion, insiders say, required more than silence. It required a carefully managed script. The myth of the untrained, unsupported Duchess? According to insiders, it was one of the most carefully curated talking points of all. Staff who were involved in Meghan's transition into royal life now claim that her alleged lack of guidance wasn't due to palace neglect.
And I said, that's really nice. And then the next call was like, he's British. And I said, well, that's really nice. And then eventually the third time around it was like, he's a prince. And Harry asked for her hand over the phone. And I said, you're a gentleman. Promise me you'll never raise your hand against my daughter, and of course I give you my...
As a silent wallet. He cut off communication completely. That's right, Tyler Perry, the man who gave them a roof when no one else would, has officially walked away. And from the tone of his message, he won't be coming back. One of the most jaw-dropping moments...
If we're going to use the word betrayal, it's because when I asked him, which is also a really key point in all this, they don't report the news, they create the news.
The royals owe me. Harry owes me. Meghan owes me. What I've been through, I should be rewarded for.
It was by design. A narrative decision. One meant to cast her as a misunderstood outsider, left to fend for herself in a cold institution. But according to multiple insiders, Meghan received extensive preparation. Full-day briefings, weekend walkthroughs, protocol guides, style advisors, even mock walkthroughs of events. She had more prep than most senior royals ever got, said one source. She just didn't want to follow all of it. When asked why the public was told otherwise, one former employee didn't hesitate, because it fit the story. Saying she was abandoned made her more sympathetic. It wasn't true, but it played well in interviews.
The only thing HRH stands for in association with Meghan Markle is her ruthless homewreckerness.
Zoom in here and it says, with the compliments of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. That is a title that was stripped from her when she and Harry made their whole racism debacle and left the UK, left their royal duties, and moved to the US to bug all of us.
It's so funny too that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex now.
I don't know about you, but I grew up with South Park, and nothing in their sights has ever been sacred. And they do have this, in my view, perfectly irreverent way of reading the room. This week they've taken a swipe at Harry and Meghan, and it's gone viral.
We want privacy! We want privacy! Thanks for having us on the show. It's so awesome to be here. It's great. So let me start with you, Sam. You've lived a life with the royal family. You've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it.
Another staffer claimed they were personally instructed to avoid correcting media reports that painted Meghan as a self-taught duchess who had to Google the national anthem and practice curtsying alone. We were told, Don't touch that story. Let it run. Even during her public complaints about how the institution failed her, insiders say they were instructed to echo her sentiment, to reinforce that narrative, even when it clashed with the truth they experienced firsthand. And that was just the start, because once the narrative was set, the pressure to uphold it reportedly only grew stronger. When Harry and Meghan premiered on Netflix, it was marketed as an intimate, unscripted look into the lives of two people who had walked away from royalty in the name of freedom. The world was promised authenticity, raw footage, emotional honesty, and never-before-seen access. But according to multiple production insiders, that's not what was delivered. A former producer, who worked on the series under strict confidentiality, now claims the show was curated from the top down. Allegedly, scenes were reviewed, discussed, and sometimes even rehearsed before filming began. Meghan and Harry, insiders say, weren't just the subjects. They were executive-level decision-makers on everything from lighting and set arrangement to wardrobe and dialogue. One team member summed it up bluntly. We weren't documenting their lives. We were filming their idea of what their lives should look like. According to these sources, some scenes labeled as candid were filmed 2 or 3 times until the facial expressions matched the intended emotional arc. Conversations that appeared spontaneous were allegedly outlined in advance. Even the setting of certain shots, couches repositioned, coffee cups swapped out, curtains red-draped, was tweaked for maximum visual impact. Wardrobe choices were also reportedly mapped out to tell a visual story: earthy tones for humility, crisp whites for innocence, moody shadows for gravity. One assistant said, "Nothing was random. It all meant something, and they wanted to make sure you saw it that way." Netflix, known for giving its celebrity partners considerable creative control, allegedly agreed to these terms in order to secure the deal. But some within the crew were uncomfortable, especially when allegedly reenacted scenes were presented as real-time events. "It crossed a line," said one insider. "People thought they were watching reality. They weren't. They were watching performance. And that performance wasn't limited to cameras. Staff behind the scenes allegedly felt the pressure too. Inside the Sussex operation, not every voice is aligned. In fact, the division is one of the most telling signs of how controlled and volatile the environment may have been. On one side are former staffers who still speak glowingly of Meghan. They describe her as considerate, thoughtful, and engaging. One even said she had a magical presence, recalling how she always remembered birthdays and handwritten thank you notes. But others paint a very different picture, one where that generosity was only extended to those who stayed completely in line with her vision. Pushed back, even slightly, and the warmth reportedly vanished. One ex-staffer who exited during the Netflix era said, "If you agreed with everything, you were lifted up. If you didn't, you were frozen out." The division created what insiders now call a mirror culture. Staff mirrored whatever Meghan wanted reflected back. Dissent was labeled disloyalty. Critical thinking was seen as a threat to the image. And the result? A team environment where people no longer knew who to trust, or what was even true anymore. The most unsettling part? Those who left say the inner circle was so tightly managed, many team members were unaware that others felt the same way. The pressure to smile, to affirm, to publicly endorse everything, even when privately uncomfortable, was immense. "You couldn't tell the truth," said one former aide. "Not even to your coworkers." Everyone was scared of being the next one out. The environment, they say, wasn't about collaboration. It was about preservation. And what was being preserved wasn't just a brand. It was a story, one storyline, one version of events. And the cornerstone of that story? The claim that Meghan entered royal life completely unprepared. Few narratives have shaped Meghan's public image more than her account of being thrown into royal life without guidance. From the Oprah interview to countless press features, she's reiterated the idea that she had no roadmap, no instruction, no clue what she was doing. It made her relatable. It made her vulnerable. It made her human. But insiders say it also made her strategic. Multiple former palace staffers now say this portrayal was inaccurate and intentionally misleading. One senior advisor said, She had full access. Binders, walkthroughs, mock receptions. She was trained. She was briefed. She knew. Another added, she had more support than most people entering that world ever get. But she didn't follow the system, and when that caused tension, she spun it as if the system had failed her. Among the most repeated claims, that she had to Google the British national anthem, that she had to practice curtsying in private with no one to help her, that she was left to fend for herself on diplomatic engagements. But according to those who were in the room, none of that was true. She had entire days dedicated to prep, said one aide. She had people whose sole job was to walk her through every protocol, every gesture, every phrase. But she didn't like being told how to do things. And instead of admitting that, she flipped the narrative. And when that narrative gained traction, staff say they were explicitly instructed not to correct it. Not in interviews. Not in background briefings. Not even when asked directly by journalists. It wasn't our job to protect the truth, said one former communications officer. It was our job to protect the version of the truth that sold. And according to insiders, that version wasn't just protected, it was polished, packaged, and distributed. Even public appearances were reportedly curated down to the last-minute detail. According to multiple event coordinators, team members were assigned to mingle with crowds, start clapping early, and create a warm wave of energy just before Meghan and Harry stepped out. Staff were also allegedly coached on when to laugh during speeches and when to signal photographers for the perfect candid moment. One team member described it bluntly. It wasn't real. It was media choreography. Smiles were rehearsed. Speeches were filtered. And Meghan's signature, hand-on-heart pose? That was allegedly suggested in early PR meetings as a gesture that conveyed compassion, calm, and credibility, all in one photo. The goal, according to one media consultant, was to build trust through imagery. But insiders say the trust eventually wore thin, especially among the people making it all happen.
Point inside the team.
Over time, the pressure to maintain a perfect narrative reportedly led to burnout, frustration, and a deep erosion of trust inside the Sussex team. One former aide said, "We couldn't be honest with the public." And eventually, we couldn't be honest with each other. Several junior team members allegedly resigned, citing emotional fatigue. Others were moved to other projects or faded out altogether. Some who stayed say they became increasingly skeptical of the truth being marketed to the world. And yet, whenever the cracks started to show, the official messaging stayed the same. Everything is fine. The team is strong. The mission continues. But insiders say those were the very things they were asked to say, sometimes against their own judgment. As more staffers began stepping away and sharing whispers with reporters, the Sussex team reportedly went into defense mode. One source claims internal documents were reviewed to ensure consistency in messaging. Another says that all social media team members were instructed to avoid certain words or hashtags in public posts. In some cases, according to staff, messages from former colleagues were scrubbed. Team WhatsApp threads allegedly went silent. A few insiders even suggest that legal reminders were issued, subtle, quiet, but clear. The objective, according to those still connected to the couple's orbit, was to protect the brand at all costs. Not by addressing the claims, but by freezing them out completely. The tactic? Say nothing and hope it goes away. But the damage, insiders say, has already been done. Industry experts say the long-term fallout could be severe. One former royal aide told a podcast, "Once the staff starts speaking, you can't undo that. That's the end of mystery. That's the end of control." Already, there's speculation that future Sussex-backed projects, whether on streaming platforms or through non-profit initiatives, will be examined far more critically. Donors may ask for more transparency. Partners may ask more questions. And the public? The public may no longer assume authenticity. Some insiders believe this could be a turning point for the couple. Not necessarily the end, but a reset. A moment where they're forced to either confront the stories or reinvent the brand entirely. But even if they choose reinvention, one thing is certain. They can't control the story anymore. For years, Meghan and Harry have held the spotlight, the script, and the microphone.
But now?
The people who were behind them, writing speeches, staging photos, smiling quietly in the background, are stepping forward. And what they're saying is changing everything. No scandal, no viral moment, no polished press release can match the power of a simple confession. We were told to lie. The question now isn't whether the Sussex story will shift. It already has. The real question is, who's still left to believe it?